district, P1 Public Service District. So moving from ag to 2 of those land uses. The proposal is for 24 residential lots and 1 public service or MR lot, encompassing about 1.6 hectares or roughly 4 acres there. So this is just a snapshot of what the zoning looks like, or the proposed land use redesignation looks like. The kind of yellow color is the R1N, and then the P1 is green there. That's in the bylaw text of that package. So infrastructure and development services, my department supports the application. We believe it's concurrent with the Wildflower Ranch area structure plan, which is adopted, and our municipal development plan. As you can see on the right there, there's kind of a land use snapshot from Wildflower Ranch, and the yellow on that map is low density residential district housing. So it's concurrent with their ASP. So just a quick conclusion and summary of everything I just said. So an application for land use has been submitted. It's for the next phase 4 of Wildflower Ranch on the west side of Strathmore. Submitting both a subdivision application and a land use bylaw redesignation application at the same time is very good progress, or very good practice, excuse me, and we have a subdivision application in progress. The proposal aligns with the town's statutory plans, the area structure plan, and the municipal development plan, and we support the application. So thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there anyone present who supports the bylaw who wishes to speak? Is there anyone present who opposes the bylaw and wishes to speak? Is there anyone present deemed to be affected by the bylaw who wishes to speak? And do the councillors have any further questions? Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Thanks, Chuck, for that.
Thank you.
Are there any plans for the MR, or is that just going to be grass, or do we know?
In the Your Worship, in response to Councillor Sobel, thank you for the question. In the area structure plan there, those dotted green lines show a regional pathway, so we think it's just going to be green space with some sort of pathway network back there connecting to a previous phase. There's no playground planned or anything back there at this time. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from councillors? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Proctor, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I was wondering, with the increase in density of that new subdevelopment, I know that sometimes having one entryway in and one entryway out has been a little bit of a problem, especially for emergency services. What have they said in terms of their viewpoints, pros and cons of having this development?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Bauer. That's an excellent question for, I believe, the Director of Infrastructure. I know 2 roads were in the works. Another connection point to that area was in the works, but
there has been a traffic impact assessment completed, and that traffic TIA clearly identifies the number of houses when that secondary access and other upgrades have to be done, and they have not reached that with this development at this time.
Great.
I hope that clarifies. When they do hit the number of lot, before they can overpass that lot, they'll have to have other upgrades in order to mitigate that risk.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Excellent
Chuck.
question.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other, Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it appropriate now to ask questions about use of municipal district or municipal reserve at this point in the hearing? Or is it better to wait until we...
Maybe James, what do you think?
Mr. Thackeray?
I would recommend that it would be a different venue for this.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Are there any other questions from councillors? Are there any further speakers who wish to be heard? Then at this time, I hereby declare this public hearing for bylaw number 17-12 closed at 7:11 p.m., and I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So move, Your Worship.
You heard the motion by Councillor Peterson. All in favor? And the motion is passed. The public hearing is closed. And at this time, I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting to be held at 7:10 p.m. in council chambers. Just before I confirm the agenda, I wanted to take a moment to make a few comments on behalf of the town of Strathmore and my fellow councilors. Our longtime Division 7 councilor, Ben Armstrong, and the whole Armstrong extended family has lost their daughter and their granddaughter, Emma Armstrong, in a tragic car accident Monday night. I had the privilege of teaching Emma this past semester, and she was a gem. She was a very positive, responsible, and kind young lady, active in a lot of different areas. And she is a girl that is going to be missed in a very large fashion in her area, in the area of Hazar, Strathmore High School, and basically anyone who knew her is going to miss her greatly. So on behalf of the town of Strathmore and my fellow councillors, I just wanted to say how deeply sorry we are for the loss of Emma Armstrong, and we wish the family much comfort in this time of sorrow. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda, so I will go to Councillor Sobel. Do you have anything?
Actually, Your Worship, I do. With council's agreement, I would like to add an item under urgent business, item number 11. This has to do with a recently received letter, Your Worship, that is asking for, in turn, a letter from council to support a project. And I would, it was received only late last week, and I was unable to get it on the agenda. I would ask that that be added to the agenda with council's approval.
Councillor Peterson?
Is that the dialysis? No, okay. Thank you.
So we'll make that item 11.1.
Thank you.
Anything else, Councillor Sobel?
That's all for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
I would like to add an item to the in-camera session if we could, please. And then I also have a question for administration, please.
So you would like the question to admin?
Yeah.
Can we put that in item 12, Jen? We'll put that item 12.1, questions to administration. Sorry, Councillor Cox, do you have anything?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson?
Yes, Your Worship, I have a question for council regarding a request from Wheatland Lodge under section 12.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Your Worship,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, administration has a
Oh,
a couple
I'm
of
sorry.
items. Thank you.
Administration, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Your Worship, we have under item 3.1, a staff introduction. Under item 14.1, an item pertaining to FOIP Section 16, business interest of a third party. And item 14.2, item pertaining to FOIP Section 16, business interest of a third party.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Corbeil?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is passed. Which brings us to item 3, presentations and recognitions. Ms. Sawatsky?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, I'd like to introduce council to a new member of our team. Miss Carla Kautz is here, and Carla is our new communications specialist. So we're extremely happy that she has joined us.
Welcome, Carla. We know you'll be a great addition to the town staff and administration. We appreciate having you here. I asked Carla today if I was one of her English teachers, and what hurt the most was she couldn't remember. So even if I was, I didn't make much of an impression. So that one stung a little. Which brings us to item 4, delegations. 4.1, Ms. Brenda Jan with the Strathmore Shuttle Company. If you would like to come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. About the first aid, I went through my insurance, I got copies for you guys. Want one?
Don't be nervous.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Because I went to them with first aid. They will not cover us through our taxi insurance for first aid. So if they put it through, because anything happens, all my drivers get sued personally. And they have worked hard for their, what they've got. They're all 65 years old, except for 3 of us. We're young. But I hate to see them have to get it. Something ever happens, the way it's going in the world, and everybody's looking for money. If they touched them, they could be charged for or sexual assault. They could be, they did the wrong thing, they could be charged for hurting their chest or broke their arm. If it wasn't for them to touch it, their arm wouldn't be like this. We could kill them, then we could be personally sued. And we just don't have the protection behind us if we got it. And if it doesn't, we still have to get it, and by January 31st, I'll have no drivers to do service in this town.
Thank you, Brenda. Are there any comments or questions from council? Yes, Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think you're bringing this is a really legitimate concern and question, and certainly one that I hadn't considered when we brought the bylaw forward. So one of the things I'd like to hear about, I know that the person most familiar with our bylaws is probably Ms. Swatsky, and I don't know if you want to comment on that, about why we would have brought that in. Thank you.
So I have some memories of when we were discussing this bylaw and when we decided to include the requirement for drivers to have first aid. And I think the conversation was based around, well, we were looking at safety. First of all, when we were bringing the taxi bylaw in, our main concern was the safety of our citizens taking the taxis in town. And so when we had discussions, at that time we had a policy review committee, and at that table there were discussions around there's a number of people that use the taxi services who are at risk or higher risk individuals, and I believe the conversation was around having first aid would help identify some issues if they came up. So at that time, I think we just decided that it would be good if we required the drivers to have that first aid. That definitely we can take a look at it. If it is an issue, we can definitely have a look and bring it back to council for further discussion.
Yeah, because with seniors, because even my insurance company has turned their heads on it. When we pick people up at the Lodge, Stagewood, Sunset, we're not supposed to help them with wheelchairs. We're not actually supposed to touch them. So that's another thing that's, I have to turn my head on. Like, these seniors can't get into vehicles without their walkers and stuff.
Thank you, Brenda. Councillor Peterson, did you have a follow-up question?
It just, Your Worship, at this point, if no one else had any questions, I'd be prepared to ask, through motion, to ask administration to bring this back for discussion to a future meeting. I think it's
Yeah,
really.
but I only, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
I only have till January 31st.
And I'm talking the next meeting.
January
Could we do that?
17th.
I think we could do it at our committee of the whole, even. We could do it next week. I think we could bring it back for discussion next week. You make a really valid point, and I understand why that a decision has to come forward by then.
Because even I talked to other people that's got first aid training, they had said, their instructor had said, you do not touch anybody but your staff. That's it. In 2005, it changed that. You do not have to use your first aid. You can be there and sit beside them while you're on the phone with 911.
Okay,
Like
thank
Our
you.
insurance company said, well, if they get, if they're having a heart attack, why are they calling the cab? Why aren't they calling the ambulance?
Thank you. Counselor Sobel.
Thank you. So I'm going down a different road here, I think, than your concerns are, and I appreciate your concerns as you're laying them out. I didn't see this this requirement as allowing or suggesting that anybody, any of your employees, any of the drivers, actually go out looking for work, medical work. This is, as I understand it, is a precaution should they come across something. I'll just read to you what I have, and I don't know if this will.
Say if you fell on the ice,
Sure.
walking down the street, I could either drive by, stop, and call 911 for you, to get an ambulance here. I cannot touch you.
Well, no, that's not true. There's laws to protect people who in good faith, assist somebody, and that's been through all the courts as well, so that's not true, but you would hopefully have some rudimentary skills in regards to first aid, and that's what the whole idea behind this thing was. Let me just read this, and then I support bringing this back for discussion, but I'll read this anyway. First of all, Section 7 and 8 of the municipal government gives council authority to pass bylaws for the safety, health, welfare, and protection of people. Section 7D of this act states that this power includes a transport and transportation system, and I believe it's meaningful to see that this act focuses in this area, as it's a very direct message that councils have a responsibility to protect those people who use public modes of transportation. A taxi driver, in my opinion, has a responsibility to the passengers using his or her vehicle. He or she has a specific responsibility, I would suggest, to do everything in his or her power to ensure the customer arrives at a location safely. Any number of unexpected situations can arise during that taxi ride, including accidents whose occupants are injured, or passengers' emergencies such as a heart attack. To have a rudimentary and basic knowledge of first aid when your job involves being responsible for the safety of the public you're transporting seems like a common sense scenario for me. And I also find it rather interesting that Alberta's Occupational Health and Safety Code, Part 2, actually requires taxis be equipped with a first aid kit. I don't know if you're aware of that. And that first aid training is recommended by Alberta Occupational Health and Safety, although it is not required by the Act. Seem a little silly for me to require you to have a first aid kit and nobody know how to use it, and I think that's the level that the bylaw has in mind, is a very basic standard first aid requirement. I mean, I think everybody should have first aid knowledge, some experience with first aid. I think it's just I mean, as a parent, as a sibling, you never know when your child is going to start choking or cuts themselves. Some first aid knowledge is really advantageous, and as long as it's done without any recklessness, there are protections in this province for people that are trying to assist somebody in a medical. I mean, I'm not talking about doing open heart surgery here. I'm talking about holding a bandage over somebody who's bleeding so that they stop bleeding. Basic stuff like that. However, I'm more than happy to see this come back on the 17th and for the discussion, and perhaps administration can also pull some information in regards to protection of citizens in regards to first aid.
It's just like teachers. I've talked to teachers. They don't have first aid.
They should.
They do.
Liability.
They do.
They do.
I can speak to that.
Trinity has 500
yeah.
children, there's one.
Yeah, that's
That
correct.
has-
That's correct. There has to be one in each
That's it.
school.
But but the rest don't have first aid.
You don't have to, that's correct.
No, because liability.
Okay, if we could just move on to Counselor Montgomery had just a comment, I believe.
Sorry, could you clarify why the drivers aren't allowed to touch people, like if they're in a wheelchair or something like that?
Why it's liability if they slip and fall,
Yeah. Oh, so your insurance company prevents it?
they won't cover us. If they slip and fall, that's, again, liability.
So are you able to help like other passengers into the cabs? No? Okay, so you
It's all
can't.
liability.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Bauer.
Okay, so on that same line of thought then, are you able to help people with luggage into a taxi cab? Because I've been helped many a time with my luggage when I show up with two or three
Yes,
pieces.
I can take luggage and put it in the cab.
So
but
luggage you
I
can.
cannot physically touch a senior.
Okay. I'm also seeing this as being very progressive. I commend the council for having thought of this, and I also remember a time where AEDs were not in arenas, and we had a very serious situation here in Strathmore where you would think, well, if you're at Strathmore Arena, you're 2 minutes from the hospital, how could that save a life? But in fact, having the AED on site did give the paramedics enough time and enough of a warning and help that person so that they were able to live, and they're still living today. I would wonder why you wouldn't want to ensure that your staff members have first aid so that in any situation, they would be able to be there and be a first line of defense.
It's all about liability. Goes to liability.
I look forward to talking about this.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. And just before I go to Councillor Peterson, I just want to assure you that you've been listened to, that we appreciate your comments and your concerns. I know council, I've done some reading myself. I've looked at different communities during today's session, and we have communicated with each other. So we do hear you, and we'll definitely give it some thought. And Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that council direct administration to bring the taxi bylaw back to council for discussion and decision relevant to the condition requiring drivers to have first aid. I'd also like additional information if possible, and not just administration, but any councillor who has time to do the research, to bring back information regarding other companies, other requirements for other communities, because I know there are many that do have it and many that don't. And also, when I was doing the research, I found towns and cities that required all their cab drivers to have sexual awareness training. Following that line of thought with regards to yours is an interesting proposition. And so I think that it just needs some second serious consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is passed. We will be bringing it back to the January 17th meeting to discuss and look at it again. Thank you again for your presentation. I do want to assure you that you have been listened to. Yeah, we have heard you, and we'll do our best as a council to look at this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda. You bet. You're a lucky girl. This brings us to item 5, the confirmation of minutes. Item 5.1, minutes of the December 20th, 2017 regular council meeting. Councillor Corbeil?
I move the confirmation of minutes from December 20th.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is passed. Item 6, tabled items. I don't believe we have any tabled items. Nope. So that takes us to item 7, items from administration. 7.1, council committee appointment regarding the Sustainability Committee on page 11 of your information. Jen.
Thank you, Your Worship. In late December of last year, council appointed numerous public members to their committees for a one-year term. There was discussion at that time of increasing membership on the Sustainability Committee, and that was later passed by an amendment bylaw to the procedure bylaw at the December 20th regular council meeting. Administration is bringing back an application that was submitted originally at that first meeting where council appointed public members for appointment to the Sustainability Committee now that there is space for this person.
Thank you. Are there any Councillor Sobel?
Just have a motion, Your Worship,
Okay,
when you're
thank you.
ready.
Are there any questions from councillors? Okay, Councillor Sobel?
Your Worship, I'd move the council appoint Ms. Oksana Treacy to the Sustainability Committee for a one-year term ending October 31st, 2018.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And the motion is passed. Item number 8, committee reports. 8.1, reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. Page 13. Councillor Sobel?
I have one report, Your Worship, in regards to the district, the Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce. The Board of Directors met on January 3rd. The major discussion items centered around the fact that January is a month focused on increasing memberships. There are many benefits to becoming a chamber member, including special rates for insurance, etc. I would encourage everyone to check out the Chamber's website for more information. It was also revealed that the Chamber's strategic planning session will take place at the end of this month. And with the recent additions of new Board of Directors members Marcus Lehman and Haley Poirier, the board is again full and ready for a busy and exciting 2018. And that's my report from the Chamber, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors with reports? Councillor Peterson?
I have a very brief report from Marigold, Your Worship. The reports are all in your mailboxes. So just to recap, the board will be voting on the Schedule C, or bringing that forward, rather, at their next meeting, which is at the end of this month. There is a building update. They are continuing with their partnership with the Irrigation District, with Western Irrigation District. The plans are going very well. The target completion date is September 2020, and they found lots of savings in the report. Very grateful to Strathmore for agreeing to lend them money if that money is indeed necessary. The report is in your mailboxes if you have any other questions, but that's all I have, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Bauer?
Yes, I just have one item, Your Worship, a report from the Youth Club. I sit on the Youth Club of Strathmore Board, and I just want everyone to know that they're moving finances from the town to the new treasurer, Aaron Corbin, currently, that they're just over 50% of their fundraising goal. Oh, so when I say that they're moving it to their treasurer, thank you, Ms. Watsky, I saw you out of the corner of my eye. My wording on that was inappropriate. The finances portion of the fundraising portion for the Strathmore Youth Club is being transferred to the treasurer. The rest of the town will be continuing with supporting the employees for the Strathmore Youth Club. Thank you. Is that better? The fundraising goal for Peru, the Strathmore Youth Club has raised about 50% of their goal. Their deposits and flights have been booked, and Tracy Simpson has been working with Shannon for a code of conduct for the parents and the students to go on the trip. There was no Christmas programming over the holidays, and an application process for the casino is in place, as well as a STEP grant application, and a grant has been received from Mr. Brett Wilson. Strategic planning session is scheduled for March, and they have some upcoming fundraising just before their Peru trip in February on the 16th of 2018. That's everything, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I sit on the Community Futures Board and was asked to just let you know a couple of programs they have going on right now. They have just introduced the 2018 STEP program, which is summer temporary employment for students. Deadline is February 9th, 2018. The STEP program is available to small businesses, nonprofit organizations, public libraries, school boards, publicly funded post-secondary institutions, municipalities, First Nation, and Métis settlements. The eligible employers will get a $7 an hour subsidy. They have a $10 million budget for this. Employers interested in hiring as students are encouraged to apply as soon as possible. The other program is for our Chinook Entrepreneur Challenge. They have posted. You can go to www.chinookchallenge.com and you could win $60,000 in cash and in-kind prizes. They will help you develop a business plan, value proposition and marketing, canvas for you, help you with legal and insurance, social media, cash flow operations, and it is a great opportunity for any business looking to start up. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Just a quick question. Jan, we'll be looking for a motion to accept. Okay, thank you. And just before I take that motion, I'm going to say this, and I've said I'm going to say this often over the next 4 years. I want to thank all the councillors for all the time you put in on your various committees. I know it's a lot of extra work, but it's much appreciated. So I'm looking for a motion. Oh, Councillor
Do you want to talk
Peterson.
about the coldest night of the year? Do you want to mention that? Do you have a date for that?
If I may add, Your Worship?
Sure.
I would like to just add that the Strathmore Overnight Shelter is also hosting a Coldest Night of the Year fundraising event on February 24th, 2018. And that event will, they will have a 2 kilometer, a 3 or 5 kilometer, and a 10 kilometer walk. And we can go to cnoy.ca to register for that event.
And the mayor always registers and always walks.
The mayor's been working on his treadmill too, so I'm going to be ready. It's not going to be a waddle anymore.
If I may add to that, also January 20th, the Strathmore Overnight Shelter is also having a fundraiser event. It's called Legends fundraiser, and I'll be putting a pamphlet in everyone's mailbox, and it'll be in the council office, as well as they have asked if town would support them on a fundraiser event, putting in a silent auction item. And I'll give that to Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you,
that's it.
Councillor Bauer. Just before I leave you, maybe I missed it. Did you have a time set for the coldest night of the year walk?
No, I do not know the time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Just a motion, Your Worship.
You're good? Okay.
I move all reports under 8.1 and 8.2 be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. You've all heard the motion? All in favor? You're pretty quick there. Motion is passed. Which brings us to item 8.2, committee reports. Council has been provided with council committee meeting minutes for their information to read. So we have some minutes that have been submitted for the Sustainability Committee and the Seniors Advisory Committee. So,
I already moved on it.
oh, you did? I thought that was a separate one. Oh, okay. Oh, you tricked me. Good, thank you. Wow. You think you're not going to have any mistakes, you just plan. Item 9, items directly related to council. 9.1, downtown parking on page 25. Jen?
No.
Is this Councillor Sobel? Oh,
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
my matter. I've requested that this be brought forward today for discussion and hopefully a decision. The issue of downtown parking has been the subject of discussion before this council on a number of occasions. Most recently, a motion to extend the permitted parking time limit in the downtown area from 2 hours to 4 hours was debated on June 21st, 2017, and that motion was defeated. I am back before council with yet another motion in this regard. The issue of downtown parking has been raised to me personally on a number of occasions. I've had shop owners and operators tell me that, in their opinion, our 2-hour parking limit discourages shoppers from shopping downtown. They relate stories of customers complaining that they had to leave to move their vehicles and were unable to complete their shopping. This issue was again raised at the May 9th, 2017 Downtown Revitalization Forum, which asked the question, do we need a downtown? The main question in this regard was why the town was restricting parking if the intent was to attract people to come downtown to shop. I considered this to be an excellent question, and I personally see this restriction as a paradox. I'd also like to bring to this council's attention the result of a petition that was circulated by a downtown business person, and I'll pass that on if you wouldn't mind, Councillor Bauer. Although this petition does not conform to Alberta Municipal Affairs standards, it still provides an indication, albeit unofficial, that there exists strong support for a change in our downtown parking policy. In this document, 55 signatures were obtained, all but 3 from downtown business owners and employees, supporting the complete removal of all time-restricted parking. My motion tonight does not go as far, but I certainly hope that council will see fit to support extending the permitted parking to 3 hours. And I do move that council authorize a change in the downtown parking time limit for municipally owned property from 2 hours to 3 hours. Thank you, Your
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. You've heard the motion. Discussion, Councillor Montgomery.
I was wondering if administration could give me an idea of what it would cost to change those signs.
Mr. Thackeray?
So just through the chair, the question is, what would it cost to change out specifically those signs that are, so just to
I'm
restrap them?
I'm
or-
concerned about just kind of spending money frivolously, I guess, and so like, you know, if it costs a prohibitive amount to switch from a 2-hour to 3-hour sign, maybe we should just go with no signs.
If I may, if we're just replacing existing signs, the signs are, I don't know, less than $100.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Any other comments or discussion? You've all heard the motion? Oh, Councillor Peterson.
Just relevant to what Councillor Montgomery has just said, and to comments from Councillor Sobel, I guess I'm wondering why we wouldn't consider just taking off the restriction. And I'm just thinking about the 4.5 years almost that I've sat here. I've heard 2-hour parking to 1-hour parking to no businesses parking to 6-hour parking to business members giving people permission slips on their dashes for parking to removing all restricted parking. And so I know that making this decision, you know, and I'm good with it, like whatever they want. But it seems like we're not really sure whatever they want. So I'm wondering if this isn't something that could come in some kind of a bid from the chamber that was comprehensive. Because right now, you know, I feel like, you know, that old fable about the donkey on the bridge, you know? Where first the man rides the donkey and people don't like it, and then the child does, and finally they carry the donkey, and finally they lose their ass off the bridge. And you know, I'm kind of thinking that's where we're going to be at, because this isn't going to solve anything, and it's not, except it may cost us money. And so, I don't know, I'll go with it, Councillor Sobel, but I'm very afraid, again.
Were you, Councillor Corbeil?
Why do we need limitations on parking? Is that, go ahead.
If I could respond, and actually to some comments of Councillor Peterson too. I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I think at one point there was a serious question in regards to whether or not we should. In fact, I think that's where things started, was to get rid of all parking. And to be fair and to be honest, there's a whole bunch of reasons why people don't want no parking restrictions, or they don't want to see that there is no parking restrictions. Is people taking advantage of the system, parking their vehicle for hours on end in ideal spots. There are business people, and even if you look on that petition, there's a number of people who were concerned about losing all restrictions. So one thing that was very clear though, and unanimous from everybody is you want to have an atmosphere where people are allowed to go downtown and park. And it's been very, very clear that the 2 hours is not enough. You know, 4 sounded like to me to be ideal, which is why I brought that motion up. It was defeated, and I think I think the vast majority of business people in the downtown area, and I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying the vast majority of people would be happier with the 3 hour than with the 2. And I think it would accomplish something. I think it would allow more shopping and some more freedom of people in the downtown area to shop.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Cox?
So I also support your 3 hour as well. Not sure I support the getting rid of altogether, because if we do get rid of altogether, we can't bring that back again. And my concern is futurist. If we do decide to build apartments, people park on Main Street and because they live there and they don't move their cars. We can't take it away after we've already given it. I support your 3 hour, Bob.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor
Yeah.
Corbeil?
No, I do too. Like I said, there's quite a few hairdressers, and like I don't even know very many ladies that can go and get their hair done in under 2 hours. So I agree with 3 hours. I would go with it.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery.
To your point, Councillor Cox, I don't think we are necessarily, maybe administration can correct me, but I don't think we're restricted from placing a restriction in the future if we were to remove all restrictions right now. I think we could, put a restriction on in the future if we want. And I think it's a good idea to go from a 2 to a 3 hour, also because we might end up reducing the number of hours spent on, even if it's a small amount, on the number of hours policing parking downtown. That could maybe save us a bit of money there.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree, Jason. I think we have the right to bring back enforcements and restrictions. I just think it's like giving a kid a candy and then taking away right away. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion points or comments? You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, Councillor, Mr. Thackeray. Jen?
Thank you, Worship. I believe that the hours set for parking downtown are set by bylaw. So I think the motion needs to have something in it to instruct administration to bring back an amendment to the bylaw to make that change.
Thank you, Jen. So, Councillor Sobel?
So I would amend my motion in regards to, I think I can leave it the same with, just let me just a second here.
You're directing administration?
I would amend it to, I move that council authorize administration to bring the parking bylaw back to this council with the intent of moving the downtown parking time limit for municipally owned building from 2 to 3 hours.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. You've all heard the amended motion. All in favor? The motion is passed. And thank you, Jen, for the clarification on that and directing us the correct way. And for those of you in the audience, please come back next week. Chapter 2 of Story Time with Councillor Peterson will be here.
I'm just shocked that Councillor Sullivan did not have the bylaw.
This brings us to item 10.1, bylaw number 17-17, land use bylaw amendment bylaw, which comes from the public hearing held earlier tonight. Mr. Proctor.
Hello again, everybody. So just again, briefly, an application has been submitted from CanCorp. It's the next phase of Wildflower Ranch, Phase 4. Submitting both a subdivision application and land use application at the same time is good practice, and there's currently a subdivision application in process. And their proposal aligns with their area structure plan and our municipal development plan. We support the application, and we're seeking second and third reading tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Cox?
Your Worship, I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 17-17.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Is there any discussion on that motion? Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Peterson?
What's that?
Don't you make the second motion and then discuss?
We made the first one,
Oh, okay.
can't discuss, and the second
okay.
one, then discuss, yeah. Huh?
So we have discussion on the second motion, Councillor Peterson.
So I really, first of all, want to say that I support the application, but I really appreciate this process. And it's just such a great improvement, and I really thank the department for what I see. And I really am favorable in this development. And just a question with regards to use of municipal reserve, and I know that CanCorp has been very creative in their developments. And I'm wondering, there were 183 people, or I have 183 residents of Strathmore on a list who really are still talking about having chickens. And they are very interested in having chicken coops in a definitive area, so that they don't have to torture their neighbors, hens specifically. And I don't know if this is either the time or the place, Mr. Proctor, to have a development corporation discuss this, but I just want to put it on the table for future consideration, and know that there is tremendous support in the community. It will be coming forward very soon, before spring. And people are also very, very interested in using public park and municipal reserve for condominiumized greenhouses and green spaces in their communities, particularly on smaller lots and more affordable housing. So that's all I have, and I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I absolutely look forward to those discussions. I'm sure our department does too. So we look forward to that. As with the questions that were asked to, again, we look forward to those discussions and getting into those topics with you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson and Chuck. Just as clarification for new councillors and anyone in the audience tonight or watching at home, one of the reasons that council was so in favor of this in my first term was the idea of R1M1 housing is a good way to deal with urban sprawl and into the rural areas. And we also wanted to try to find ways to make homes more affordable for first-time home buyers and young families. So the idea behind this is really sound, and I am also echoing Councillor Peterson's comments concerning the subdivision and the approval process. So we've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we're looking for a motion. Oh, Councillor Bauer, sorry.
Your worship, I move that council give third reading to bylaw 17-17.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. You've heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council.
And that brings us to item 11, urgent business. Councillor Sobel, I believe you had 11.1, a letter from council.
Thank you, Worship. Terry and Marvin
Council.
Kinsman are the owners of the Rocking R Guest Ranch, which is located approximately 15 kilometers southeast of Strathmore. The Guest Ranch has provided lodging to thousands of vacationing visitors from around the world and also hosts a number of weddings on an annual basis. The effect that this establishment has on our community is substantial when one considers that many of their wedding guests seek overnight accommodation in Strathmore. In fact, at least 623 of their wedding guests utilized Strathmore as their temporary residence in 2017. In addition to using our hotel and motel accommodation, these guests also ate at our restaurants, bought gas at our gas stations, and purchased groceries and gifts at our businesses. The Rocking R Guest Ranch has a deep connection to our community, and over the last year has financially sponsored events such as Lord of All, Lutheran Church International Dinner, Hope Community Covenant Church Place School fundraiser, Strathmore Downtown Festival, Strathmore High School Theatre, the Holy Cross Collegiate Drugs and Addiction Magazine, the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society, the Strathmore Curling Club, and the Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce. In addition, Ms. Kinsman presently sits on the board of directors for the Canadian Badlands Tourism Organization and is the president of the Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce. In correspondence I received late last week, I have been notified that the Kinsmans are in the process of applying to the County of Wheatland for a land use redesignation. It is their intention to expand on the type of events that they can host at their guest ranch. It is their hope to also attract Christmas craft markets, hands-on cooking classes, corporate retreats, agricultural tours, and equine-assisted learning for persons with disabilities. The correspondence I received concluded by asking for a letter of support from the town of Strathmore for the redesignation application. While acknowledging that we have no legal standing in this application, I would suggest that this is a company that certainly has a very positive effect on both our business community and also for our efforts to increase the level of tourism in our town. I move that a letter of support for the Rocking R Guest Ranch be prepared and signed by the mayor on behalf of council.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Are there any comments or questions? Any discussion on the motion? You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is passed unanimously. And Councillor Sobel, can I just ask you for that information to be passed on as far as the letter?
Absolutely, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 12, questions between councillors and council statements. And I think there is a 12.1 and a 12.2 on this one. But I'm at a loss as to who's. Jason, you're 12.1. Thank you. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question I received from a senior gentleman in our community, and he was just wondering, at the back alley portions, sidewalks, who is responsible for clearing the back alley portion of sidewalks? So he lives kind of near downtown, and as he walks towards downtown, he's walking on the sidewalks, and as he gets to the back alley's, ice and snow, and then you get back to sidewalk, and then it's ice. So he was asking who's responsible for clearing off that back alley portion of the sidewalk.
Good question. Mr. Thackeray?
Could I just ask a clarifying question through the chair, please? Are you referring to the sidewalk or the alley?
So it'd be like the sidewalk where it crosses over the alley.
Okay, so what are you saying, the sidewalk, the width of the alley, that
Yeah,
section?
correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think can we get back to you on that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
We just have to double check.
Okay, so we're just going to leave that at administration. We'll come back to you, Councillor Montgomery. Admin inquiry? Ms. Sawatsky, can we do this as an administrative inquiry?
Yes, Your Worship. Administration can bring back to the committee the whole meeting next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Montgomery. Which brings us to item 12.2. I believe it's Councillor Peterson dealing with the Wheatland Lodge.
I just have a quick question. Request from Wheatland Lodge for council to sponsor one of their monthly birthday parties. They were very pleased with Councillor Sobel's calling and the adept work of my fellow councillors at the not you at the bingo. We had a wonderful time. They had a good time. So I'm wondering if you would you consider March, middle of March? We'll do a St. Patrick's Day theme. Yeah. I need to do that as a motion. So I would move that council, providing the date is open for the March birthday party at Wheatland Lodge, that council be the supportive group for that event. It'll be the third Wednesday in March.
Thank you for that motion. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion, comments? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really applaud the seniors for wanting to be involved with council and wanting the town to step in and doing the birthday parties each month. What I worry about is precedence, that we're setting a precedence that we're each month going to the Wheatland Lodge and celebrating people's birthdays, and that other associations or community people might be coming to us and asking us to also help, and we only have so much time. So I'm just I'm concerned about that part and just wondering about setting precedents. So Councillor Peterson, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we're setting a precedent, well, there's no question. Other people ask, I mean, so far they haven't. And I've been here for 5 years, they're the only, or almost, and they're the only ones that have asked, but I'm sure if others did, we would find some consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer and Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox?
Just as note, I was fun.
You were fun, you were huge fun. You were.
And I think by doing,
Incompetent at bingo, but really fun.
I believe that the March one is good, and then we don't have to do it again.
One a year?
Or, yeah, we did one last year, we do one this year, and we leave it for everyone else.
Thank you, Councillor Cox, and that's good clarification in that we know as what we're looking at as we move forward. So we have that as a motion? Has that been made then? Okay. So you've all heard the motion. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. The motion is passed. And did you want that put in the minutes that you were the most fun? Item 14, we are looking at in camera. We have, item 13, administrative inquiries. You're right, sorry. And I believe you have a few.
Yes, Your Worship, I have 5. I have 3 from Councillor Sobel. The first is in regard to broadband. It says, because of the internet and related technologies, the world is now transitioning to more complex economic systems built around knowledge. Some of the most significant impacts of this unfolding transition relates to economic innovations, productivity, and societal organization. Access to the highest levels of information and communications technology is critical to sustain economic development in our community. Although much discussion amongst members of previous council has taken place as it related to the possibility of introducing broadband or a lit fiber network to our community, little action has been taken. At a recent meeting hosted by the CRP, the issue of regional broadband investigation was discussed. It was also revealed that at least 3 communities in the CRP area had already undertaken projects involving business cases for their communities. As well, documents focused on regional broadband investigation that pertain to municipal and regional opportunities and options, as well as regional landscape issues, have been produced. My inquiry pertains to whether administration feel they are in a position to provide this information with a report that would outline steps they feel are necessary necessary to move forward with a plan as to how and if further action in regards to broadband implementation could take place, and to provide this council with the opportunity to decide whether or not it should. I'm happy to provide administration with an assortment of documents that pertain to this issue. Second inquiry is in regard to the new business welcome policy. Town Policy 6201, which is the new business welcoming policy, is designed to focus on being proactive in welcoming and supporting new businesses who have the desire and courage to open a business in our community, in our municipality. Section 3.6 of the policy makes reference to encouraging the local Chamber of Commerce to participate in the welcoming program. It states, wherever possible, this town of Strathmore will encourage this Strathmore and District Chamber of Commerce to participate in the new business Welcome to Town program. My inquiry focuses on what steps are being taken to encourage the Chamber to participate. From discussions with the organization, it appears that they are not being notified nor invited to attend, but would very much appreciate the opportunity to do so. And Your Worship, I can actually answer this inquiry right now. So yes, the policy does state that we will encourage the Chamber of Commerce to participate. Administration has actually overlooked this part of the policy, but we will be in contact with the Chamber from this point forward. The third inquiry is in regard to citizen communication forums. It reads, members of this council have embraced a town procedure which encourages members of our community to use a citizen communication forum to bring attention to areas of concern or, hopefully, to provide some appreciation for how our staff manages or performs their duties. The benefit of using this form, which is readily and easily accessible through the town website, is that a record is made of the issue at hand. Although I completely support and have encouraged this program to be used, I have discovered that not being kept abreast of the contents of these communication forms is unacceptable. Personally, I feel the need to keep track of what concerns our residents have. My inquiry or request is whether a copy of each citizen communication form can be placed in a binder and kept in the councillor's office space. Next inquiry is from Councillor Peterson in regards to seniors housing as an item for the strategic planning session in January 2018. It reads, our provincial government recently commented that they were considering a move to government-sponsored and operated seniors housing and care facilities rather than partnering with the private sector. This new government position has made me consider whether discussion should be held with Wheatland Housing, Strathmore Town Council, and Wheatland County Council to consider and perhaps formulate a joint proposal to the provincial government encompassing a much larger and more integrated seniors complex than the current proposal for one new lodge facility. I'm requesting whether consideration of the seniors housing could be added as an item for the strategic planning session in January 2018. And finally, administrative inquiry from Councillor Peterson in regard to Wheatland dialysis. It reads, a recent meeting took place in Strathmore to discuss the possibility of promoting a community-based dialysis unit in our community. Siksika, Wheatland County, and Strathmore residents were invited as well as other interested parties. The meeting was well attended, and a major outcome from the meeting was that the Siksika community had a very large number of their community requiring dialysis, and Siksika advised that they would pursue a Siksika-based dialysis unit. While this undertaking would be supported by the group, there remains a desire to explore further options for a Strathmore-based dialysis unit. The committee has made the following request for Council's consideration. Would Mayor Fuel and CAO James Thackeray, or designate, agree to meet the Strathmore Physicians Group and other not-for-profit and for-profit agencies to discuss the viability of pursuing such an undertaking? The committee believes the input of community leaders regarding the vision of our community would be an important component in the consideration of moving forward with such a plan. The committee wishes council to understand that they are not seeking funding, approval, or advocacy, only the weight of their capacity to represent community in investigating future possibilities for such an undertaking. It also states that committee leads Mike Cooper and Don Geiger would be interested in attending.
Thank you, and that's all the administrative inquiries. Thank you. So that brings us to item 14. Oh, Councillor Peterson has made a motion to go in camera to deal with items pertaining to FOIP. And you've all heard the motion. All in favor? We are going in camera.